Welcome back to the Skillabration podcast. We have David Belman with us today. And David Belman is a second generation home builder, land developer, and realtor in Southeastern Wisconsin. David has served as president of the Metropolitan Builders Association as well as the Wisconsin Builders Association, and he's known for his work with Operation Finally Home, which is an organization that builds and provides mortgage-free homes to wounded combat veterans. Today, David and his firm have provided 6 mortgage-free homes to deserving veterans. David also hosts the Home Building Hero podcast, which has over 400,000 downloads, which is amazing. Congratulations. David is also an author of an Amazon best-selling book called Leadership Growth Hacks. He was recently inducted into the Wisconsin Builders Association Hall of Fame in 2024.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, very cool stuff. Yeah, it's been a good year so far. So lots of fun things
Yeah,
happening.
amazing.
Welcome to the Skillabration podcast, where it's career day every day. I'm your host, Nikki Lubing, the owner of Skillabration, an online foreign language school for K-12 homeschool students. My experience learning Spanish as a second language led me to building a variety of skills that set me up for life, from soft skills to financial literacy. It's my mission to provide those same skills to youth around the world through the Skillabration podcast. I'll be interviewing guests from a variety of backgrounds and careers, ranging from teachers to business owners and blue-collar workers. I'm excited to uncover their wisdom and experiences, whether it's mastering a new language, honing leadership abilities, or learning the ins and outs of money. We're here to take your skills from zero to fuego.
For you.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and, hopefully share some wisdom and inspire some students and other people that listen in the podcast here.
Yes, thank you so much. So I gave an introduction to who you are. I don't know if you want to add anything to that about what you do, who you are, and what you do. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, my main job is I build homes, right? So I'm a home builder. I do subdivisions and land development and some real estate work. And so that's my primary business operations that we have. And then I'm involved in a lot of other things throughout the industry. So kind of started as I've just developed myself more as a leader. Then I started serving in different roles throughout the building industry, helping out, supporting housing issues, and supporting just the industry to make sure that the next generation has the ability and the same ability that I've had, which is to own my own home and have the American dream of owning a house. So that's really important to me, and that's important that the next generation also experiences that. Because I guess one piece of advice I'll give you right away is that your wage will pay the bills, but if you want to get wealthy, you have to own a home and own some real estate. So if you want to be wealthy, you got to own real estate.
Okay. Why do you say that? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. One of the main reasons is that the best way to accumulate wealth is to have assets that grow in value, and land and real estate continually grow in value. There's a finite amount of it. And so like if you look at it just from a real simple mathematic way, if you're renting, you're paying $1,500, $2,000 a month, and it goes out the window. Well, if you at least have a mortgage, even though you have debt, you have that asset of that home. And so every year you're going to accumulate roughly about $7,000 in additional wealth just by owning that property, just from the principal that you're putting towards it. And then if that property grows in value, which historically it does, that also will add between $5,000 and $7,000 more in wealth. So that's like $15,000 a year easily that you can accumulate every single year just by owning property. So I encourage everybody to buy something as soon as they possibly can. And the way the housing market is right now, it's going up in value a lot faster than that. So you can really, if you make a smart buy, you can accumulate a lot of wealth very early in life.
Is there anything that parents can teach their kids or kids can start doing from a young age to be prepared to buy their own home?
I think that's a great question. I think one of the biggest things is teaching the habit of learning to save.
Mhm.
because that's one of the biggest issues we're seeing with young buyers out there is they don't have enough money to put down. They might make decent money, but they don't have any money to put down towards a home. So learning to be fiscally responsible and saving a portion of everything you make towards, having that down payment for a home, maybe first a car, of course, so that you have a way to get to work and things. But shortly thereafter, putting a little bit of money aside every paycheck to get that deposit for that home. Because once you get that point where you've got 5 or 10% down, now you can go out and buy some property, and again, as I mentioned, you'll be financially better off by doing that.
Yeah. What do you think, what's the average dollar amount that people should save up? What does 5 and 10% typically look like?
Well, it's going to depend on the market and,
Right.
and what kind of home you're trying to buy, obviously. I would say, ideally you'd want to have probably closer to, I would say $40,000
Hmm.
down is a good at least target, because that would allow you, if you have 10% down, then to buy a $400,000 home, which is, kind of above average, at least in my market, for average home sale. Um, if you have 40,000 down to, even if you can find a home that's in the lower price range, the 250 to 300 range, well, now you've got more money down. You're going to be a more solid buyer for the bank. So, I think if you target that 40-50 range, you're going to be in really, really good shape.
Exactly. And if you think in smaller numbers, because 40,000 can sound like a lot to people, but if you could break it down between like 10,000 a year or 5,000 a year for a certain amount of years, um, you know, doing XYZ work, then like you said, just
Yeah,
learning how to
it's
save, it doesn't have to be as scary as it sounds.
Yeah, and with all the technology and the auto withdrawals and things like that, just set up a separate account and have every month have it either taken right from your paycheck and put into a different account, or have your bank automatically do it. So you don't have to necessarily go through the painful process of pulling that money out of your wallet and putting it somewhere else. Just have it automatically done. You won't even miss it after a while if you do it that way, and then all of a sudden you'll, don't even look at that account for a while, and then all of a sudden, a year later look at it and go, wow, I've already accumulated $2,000. I'm already, well on my way to this. So even if it's just $100 a paycheck, or just trying to find a way to do that early on, it just makes your life so much easier. And also you'll turn around and go, look, I can go buy myself a house now.
Yeah, that's actually a great tip is having it automated because some people just don't have that knack or it might not come naturally to take the step to do it yourself. So if you have the bank actually just doing it for you, that's a great tip.
And right on line with your topic, like I did that for my daughter's college education. It was just something where I wasn't really cognizantly putting money aside right away, and then I talked to my investment guy, and we just started doing $100 every pay period, just put it towards her college savings plan. And now, she's a year away, and I'm like, we're almost fully funded, depending on what school she goes to, of course. So just from doing that for so many years, and time goes by fast, so you don't always realize, like, that little bit of money that you keep throwing off to the side and saving, how quickly that can accumulate, and you start getting interest on it, and or investing it, and can turn into quite a bit of money. So I've over doubled the money that I had, from the investment part of it, not just looking at what I put in, but 20 years of having it in a savings program has done wonders.
Have you taught your daughter some of the skills from your industry?
I'm starting to. Yeah, she actually is working part time for me, so we're having her do some things and learn a little bit of it. So, but I probably could be better about teaching her the financial things, to be honest with you, because sometimes right now we still kind of handle a lot of that for her, and so I think that's going to be important lessons in the last couple of years of her time with us here, to make sure that she understands how to be fiscally responsible.
Right, right, exactly. Um, what is some of the vocabulary related to home buying that young people might not know yet?
Oh
So
boy,
for
I mean,
example, just, something that comes to my mind is like a mortgage,
yep,
but
yeah, that was the first one I was gonna probably jump into, is a
yeah,
mortgage, right? So basically, if you're young and you're looking at buying a house, um, you don't pay cash for it. I mean, unless you're super rich, so you have to get what's called a mortgage. And a mortgage is basically something that the bank provides. They basically are going to give you money, but then in return for that, they're going to put a hold on the title of the home. So every house has a title. It's a record of the ownership of the home. And basically what it says is before you sell that home, you have to clear that title before you could sell it. So the bank kind of puts a hold on that title, and you have to pay that bank off and settle up with them before you can sell the property. But the bank knows that the home is an increasing asset, and so they're generally comfortable with it. They're going to do a lot of different things, but they're going to do a bunch of different things to make sure that that property is worth what you're paying for it, and they're going to appraise it, and they're going to have someone which is called an underwriter look at it and make sure that everything checks out before you buy it. So you're also not going to buy something that you're going to be underwater on, or you're going to buy it and it's not worth what you paid for it. There's a lot of checks and balances in place. So you can definitely go through that process and feel very comfortable with that. And then another term that you might have as a young person, you're going to work with potentially a realtor. A realtor is a licensed agent that's going to help you do all the paperwork on the home, and they're also going to be, looking out for you and helping you make that transaction. So, and there's other things like insurance. This is like super exciting stuff now, right? We're talking insurance. Yeah, but you're going to need to get insurance on your home. So if something happens to it, it burns down, it gets hit by a tornado, you pay money every month, but then if that happens, they would pay to replace your home. So, I mean, these are all like adulting things, right? But it's important stuff that you need to have in place so that, you can raise a family and have a stable future.
Yeah. So could you talk a little bit about, I have two follow-up questions. So one, could you talk about interest rates? And then the other is finding, like, what's the quality of a good realtor to look for to
Sure.
find the right people that you trust?
Yep. So obviously interest rates are, again, something as you start to borrow money, you're going to pay a lot more attention to. And a mortgage is really one of the better ones that you can have because it's one of the lower rates that you're going to get. Now it's going to be a higher amount of money. And so those payments are going to be maybe large to you early on in life, but it's way better than going out and just getting a regular car loan. It's going to be way better than getting a credit card loan. If you borrow money on a credit card, you could be paying over 20% easily. Car loan might be, 10% or something, depending on if it's your first loan. Mortgage is probably going to be closer to 7%, which, again, a lot higher than it was a few years ago when it was 3%. But historically, that's a pretty normal mortgage rate for homes. And a lot of people have had mortgages like that over their lives. So it's a cost of doing business. But again, if your property is rising in value 5 or 10% a year, it really doesn't matter that you're taking out that mortgage because, again, you're still building value, you're building equity in that home, and it's going to grow in value. As far as like a realtor, first of all, it's always a great job option for people. There's always a need for sales. So if you're younger and you're like not sure what you want to do, sales is always an opportunity. You can always make money. In fact, some of the most well-paid people in organizations are the salespeople. And it's not always a glamorized position, but it's one of the ones where you can control your own destiny. So if you work hard and you putting in good effort, you're going to make really, really good money doing sales. So real estate is certainly an opportunity out of sales. And, in any state, you have to get a license to do that. There's some classes you take and you pass a test. But after that, as far as qualities for a good realtor and skills that you want to have, negotiating is a good skill, obviously, being able to find what one person values, another person values, and bring it together. That's important. I think patience is really a good skill too, because, unfortunately, people don't buy the first house they see. Sometimes they need to see a lot of properties. They need to be educated. I do new home construction, which takes even longer. So you're taking an abstract concept of, I have this plan here, and now it's going to turn into this 3D home that you live in, and you walk through, and you cook in and you sleep in and all this kind of stuff. So you have to kind of help them visualize what this is all going to look like and how it's going to come together and all these parts and pieces. So you definitely need a lot of patience and understanding. And then I think the other thing for any sales is confidence. You've got to be confident in yourself and confident in the product. I would just equate it to like if you go into a doctor's office and you're sick, do you want to go into the doctor's office where the guy's like, boy, I've never seen that before. I don't know what to do about that. I wouldn't feel really good about that doctor, would you? No, you want to go in and like, I talk to Realtor and like, well, this is a really great subdivision because it's close to the schools. It's got a really great school district. There's restaurants. There's, the freeway's 2 miles away. It's got all these great neighbors. And like, you want somebody that knows what they're talking about and you want somebody that can confidently talk about it. And if you can see that, you're going to be more likely to work with somebody and you're going to be a lot more successful.
Yeah. What are some surprises that first-time homeowners experience?
There's a ton, but I think sometimes understanding like the taxes and property taxes and making sure again that you've got something set aside for that, so you're not surprised at the end of the year when the tax bill comes. And a lot of times when you do financing through the bank, they're going to actually take money every month towards your taxes, so you don't have to think about it again. That's a great way to go early on. I think sometimes people just don't even realize like all the other things involved with owning a home. You've got to move, so you've got moving costs, right? Again, you have the insurance that we talked about. That's another cost of home ownership, and then you actually have to maintain your home. So you've got to shovel the snow and cut the grass and replace bushes, and now the house needs some paint. Now you got to repaint it. So unfortunately, when you buy a home, that is not the end of the journey. That's just the beginning. But you develop really valuable skills when you own a home because you start to learn to do a lot of these things yourself, and you learn how to take care of your plants, and you learn how to caulk or paint something or fix something with get the screwdriver out and fix the door that's off a little bit or whatever. You learn to do those kind of things, and those are great skills to have.
Can you negotiate the taxes that you owe on your property, on your home?
Unfortunately, yes, you can a little bit, but typically the taxes are determined by the municipality, and they hire an assessor, an appraiser to figure out that value. Now, when they create a different value for the property, there's a very small window that you can go in and you can talk to them. And if you can provide some other data, you can sometimes negotiate that amount a little bit, but typically they're not going to move a real lot on it. But like if you show like, hey, all these homes that you're comparing my house to have finished basements in it and mine doesn't, and you've got me at the same price, you have a really good argument there to get your price adjusted. But if you just come in there and say, I think you have my house too high, they're going to be like, okay, well, that's what we have it. Yeah, so it's a very data-driven business. So if you can provide data and some rationale, you have a fighting chance.
Yeah. Where do people typically have to go to negotiate that if they do want to try that?
Typically, you're going to get a letter from the municipality that's going to tell you like, hey, this is your new assessment for your home. And if you have any questions or concerns about it, sometimes they have meetings where you can go and you get an opportunity, or sometimes you have to just set an appointment with the assessor basically. And I would always say like go into that meeting prepared, because if you don't, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to shift gears a little bit. So thank you so much for everything you've shared so far. I think it's super helpful. But you own your business as a family business. So what was it like to kind of take that over? How did you feel when you started working for your family business? Did you want to do that, or was it like expected of you, or?
Sure. Yeah, having owning a business is a completely different challenge in life, but can be super rewarding. A lot of most of the businesses in the world are actually small businesses, so a lot of people will own their own company at some point in their life, and that's another really great way to build wealth. And one of the advantages of owning your own company is you have some of the freedom of setting your own schedule. You have the freedom of choosing the work that you do, because you can hire people to do other things that you don't like or you're not as good at. But you also have to be sort of have multiple skill sets, I would say. So, and I've done every job in the company at some point or another, and that's good to do that. So you know how to do everything. You know how the business operates. As far as like that process and the family and things like that, I found that too much family in business is difficult. So I've tried to get a little bit of that out of my business so it runs more like a company. It makes my stress level less. Um, but the nice thing with running a business is that, again, you have the freedom, you have the control to do what you want with it. You can make it kind of your own. Um, but the risk is there's risk and reward. If you work hard and you do really well, you should make more money, and you could make a lot more money than if you just had a regular wage. The risk is you have things out of your control. I'm in an industry, construction, that's very, very dependent on regulation and very dependent on the general economy. So when the economy is doing well, that usually means home building is doing well. And when it's not doing so well, it's not. And so I have years where we make money. I have years where we lose money. And in my business, it's not unusual to have a year where you make a lot of money and then you have a year where you lose a lot of money. It all kind of, works itself out. Now, some businesses you're not going to be as up and down as ours. And, like last year, interest rates went up. They doubled from the previous year. So we had a crummy year. We knew that. So you work through it, tighten your belt, and you just be smart about things. But year before that, we had one of the best years we've ever had. So, you got to, again, be smart and save money when you can, because you're going to need it in the future. And but it's challenging and it's exciting, and there's always something different, and there's always new challenges. And so if you like challenges, you like variety, if you want to have full control of whatever you're doing, then maybe being a business owner is for you.
100%. Yeah. I say when you own your own business, it's the best professional development you could get out there because
Absolutely.
the growth is constant.
Yep. Yeah. And one thing I'll tell everybody that's listening to this is you're not done growing the day that you finish school, whether it's elementary school, whether it's high school, whether it's college. When I made the mistake when I finished college, I was like, I'm done reading textbooks. I will never read another book. And that didn't serve me very well right away. And then later in life, I started reading a lot of business books again. And you should set aside 15 to 20 minutes every day to learn something, even if you're not in school. Read something, watch an educational video. If you like that, listen to a podcast. Do something that's going to promote yourself and grow yourself. So one of my mentors and friends always did the tree analogy. He said, you're a tree. You're either growing or you're dying. Trees don't stay stationary. They're either growing or dying, right? So if you're not reading or learning or doing anything, you're actually dying. And so you want to be in growth mode as much as you can.
What inspired you to make that shift when you said, you had this mentality of, I'm done with books, and then when you said later in life you started reading again, what inspired that change?
I think part of it was just kind of being stuck in a rut and seeing that we're not, like, the organization wasn't growing, I wasn't growing. And I got a mentor and a business coach that I started to work with, and he really kind of instilled that in me and kind of created a little bit of that hunger to get better and grow. So I started to do that, and I probably got like really obsessive about it for a while, and kind of went too far where I was just doing way too much. And then I've kind of dialed it back a little bit. And you have to understand, like, in life too, like you get into some of those phases where you do too much or you get too heavy into something. And so it's about finding balance at the end of the day too. And so I think we all struggle with that. I continue to struggle with that in my life of too much work, not enough work. It's something that adults have to deal with.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about a little bit about skills. That was one thing I wanted to talk about. So you said, you work hard and you achieve goals. But to me, what I found personally is that it's not just working hard. You need to have specific skills that get you to a specific place, or you need to have a certain focus. We both know the coach Erin Marcus, and she's discussed this too, where you could be working on something really, really hard, but it might not be the right thing to work on. So
Absolutely.
what skills do you need to be successful, and what do you typically focus on to get that success?
Yeah, so one of the things that was helpful to me is like I took a learning assessment and a personality assessment, and I encourage anyone to do this because it's really informative, and you see things about yourself that you don't really realize. So you'll get this report back, and it could be 60, 70 pages, and it'll say like you're strong in this, you're not strong in that. And what I tell a lot of people, especially like if you're going to be a business owner, is find your weak spots and then get better at them. So like one of the things initially for me was I wasn't necessarily the strongest person with financials. So I read a couple books about, you know, business finance and things like that, which helped me. And I like marketing. I enjoy marketing. So sometimes I'll read something about marketing just to learn some new tips or tricks. But first focus on your weak spots so that you can get better, you know, because we don't, we're kind of like a computer, right? When you come out of the box, there's certain things we can do, like we know how to breathe, and we can, you know, we learn how to listen and talk and things like that. But we have to train ourselves to do everything else. Like we don't come out of the box knowing how to do accounting. We don't come out of the box knowing how to, you know, stain a cabinet. I'm just using examples from my industry, right? We don't come out of the box knowing how to sell to somebody. So we have to learn these skills, and we can either learn them, you know, from another person. We can learn them, you know, in a variety of ways, from books to podcasts, videos, whatever. But find your weak spots and then work on improving those. And you could have a whole discussion just about the different kind of things you can learn, because there's what you learn in school, right? Reading, writing, arithmetic, and geography, all that kind of stuff. But then there's a whole set of other skills that they don't really teach, and that's like how to deal with people and how to negotiate and how to you know, maybe deal with somebody that's dealing with a difficult situation. How do you talk to them? How do you listen and respond appropriately? So there's like emotional intelligence, and there's spatial intelligence. Like how do you put something in a room to make it look good? Like there's so many skills that are out there that you can learn that you probably haven't even touched in school.
Yeah. What are the top 3 skills you think that have served you in your career?
I think, well, I don't know if it's a skill, but work ethic is important, obviously. So I think, you know, I'm not the smartest, I'm not the fastest guy, I'm definitely not the tallest guy, but I'll work a lot of people. So that's always served me well. I think the willingness to learn and change is a big skill. So being willing to, you know, just say, hey, you know what, I'm not good at this, but I can get better at it. And I think the just the awareness of being like, okay, knowing like this is something I'm not good at. And I think one of the other skills that I kind of missed on, but I think it's really important, especially when we talk about business, is just being able to delegate. And I struggled with that early on. I was like, okay, I'll be the superhero, I'll do everything. But if you want to have a company and you want to grow a company, you got to be able to have other people do things, and you got to be willing to say, hey, I'm going to give this to you, and I'm going to trust you to do this. And being able to allow them to flourish and grow and thrive is another big skill.
Yeah, actually, that's a question that I do have for you here, is about leadership skills. So, what skills have you developed as a leader, and do you consider yourself someone who does like servant leadership?
Sure. Yeah, leadership is huge, and obviously I wrote a book about it, right? So
Yes, yes. So
the
talk,
passion.
say the title of your book.
Sure. Yeah. So my book is Leadership Growth Hacks, and it's originally was developed for kind of a younger developing professional audience, but I just had recently a CEO of a big corporation that read it. He just was taking over, and actually some of the things that were in my book, I've seen him already started to implement in the organization, and I was kind of laughing about it. I'm like, I know where you got that from. So it's kind of gratifying to see that.
Yeah.
But I think some of the skills that you need to have as a leader, I think you have to be a good listener, first of all. Um, a leader also has to be someone that can inspire other people, and so you can do that by a lot of ways. You can lead by example, but you can also lead by sharing your vision. Um, People want to work for someone and work for some place that they believe in, and so if you can lay that out, like obviously it's like I build homes, right? But we do more than build homes at Belman Homes. Like you mentioned that we do the Operation Finally Home project. So some people want to work for a company that does good in the community, and that's one of the things that we do. So we find a wounded combat veteran and we give them a brand new mortgage-free home. Now we can spend an hour talking about that, but in a brief summary, like I work with all these different vendors and I explain to them about the family and the situation that they're in and why this is going to be great for them. And they're willing, a lot of them, to donate material and labor. But that all started with a vision of let's help this one family, and here's why. And people want to work for someone that they feel inspired by, but they also want to work for someone that or a company that's about something. So, um, that's why like Elon Musk is successful, right? He's got these big visions, and people want to work for someone that has like a big vision, and they want to be a part of something greater than themselves.
Yeah. Does your team know your vision? How do you express that to your team?
Yeah, so we've created a vision for Belman Homes. So it's part of, there's a big sign in the office. Not that you can just paste something on a sign and expect everybody to understand it, but we have we used to do monthly meetings, but I have a very well established team. The newest person on my team has been there 7 years, so longest person's over 30. So most people get it, but we spend time every other month just focusing on part of that vision. And our vision is to create the ultimate building experience, one customer at a time. So one of the things too that you'll have to learn if you ever go into business is how do you differentiate and set yourself apart. And you need this not only for your business, but for yourself personally. What makes you tick? What makes you different? What's your unique offer? So obviously for me, I can say like I'm the only builder in Wisconsin that's given away 6 homes to wounded veterans. I know no one else can say that. I can confidently say that. That's something unique about me and something unique about my company. So developing something that sets you apart. And in this day and age, the other thing is, your personal brand, right? We're in the era of lots of social media and all these different platforms. So developing your own personal brand, because people don't buy the company so much, they buy the person. I mentioned Elon Musk, he owns several companies, but some people just are big Elon Musk fans. So they're going to go out and buy a Tesla, or they're going to, use the payment system he created way back in the day that got him to where he was. But because they like who he's about. Just like Apple, when they come out with a new phone, they don't just, here's the phone, or they don't have Shaquille O'Neal come out and go, hey bro, look at this phone, right? No, Tim Cook, the CEO, comes out and he talks about this phone, and you're buying him, you're buying his personality, you're buying what that person's all about. So people buy people, they don't buy the company.
Totally. Yeah. 100% agree. So how does that come into play with something like networking? I look at you and I consider you, and I haven't told, our audience or our listeners here, like how we know each other, but you and I have known each other maybe 2 years now. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
maybe
think it's like a
three or
couple
four now, I
years,
think.
2 to 3 years,
Time
but
flies.
I met David through uh what was Young Guns called? Like an event?
Yeah, we just put on like a business development event. So I had
Yeah.
a side company called Young Guns that we
Yeah.
brought business professionals together, and we
Yeah.
taught skills, a lot of the skills that I was mentioning before that you don't learn in school, uh,
Yeah.
to other business owners. And it was
Right.
also an opportunity to network.
Yes, exactly. So when I look at David, I think of somebody who knows how to network really well. Can you talk a little bit about that and your journey with networking?
Sure. Yeah. It's kind of funny because I don't think I was good at networking when I first started in business. And again, that's not something they teach, right? Like, how do you network? Like, you could do a whole class on that, right? And so some of it was, I had a gal at the Builders Association that was a really good networker, and she did a little course on just like, go to this event and how to create an elevator speech, and then always bring extra business cards. And but networking is a lot about not just meeting other people and understanding what they do, but then finding a way to help them or connect them. So like, for example, like your business and my businesses are pretty different, right? Like we don't really have a natural like one-to-one connection between our two businesses, right? But that doesn't mean that it isn't valuable for us to network with each other, because I'm going to run across people that might be like, hey, I want to live here, but I don't like the school system. Well, I'm like, well, maybe, you can go talk to Nikki, and, you can you can have your kids learn online from her, right? All of a sudden now that's a connection that I could make. And it doesn't seem like it would be a linear connection, but it is, right? Or I could be like, hey, I'm looking for someone to come talk about this. And you're like, well, I know somebody here. You're in a different state than I am. You have a whole different pool of people that you deal with. So it's about making connections and then finding ways to help those mutual connections, not only to grow your network, but also help you grow your business or grow professionally, right? And, if I need help with something, I know that I can call you and you'll pick up the phone and you're willing to help me, and likewise. And a lot of times your value in the marketplace is almost as much tied to the size of and the value of your network.
Yeah,
It's not
totally.
just your skills, it's your network too.
100%. And did you start doing Operation Finally Home through your network?
Yeah, so having a big network makes things like that work a lot easier. For whenever you start to do things or expand your business, if you have a network, I've heard people say your network is your net worth, and it's a great comment because it's true. I'll go back to Operation Fly Home in a second, but like just an example of that, I have somebody that's a friend of mine. I'm not real close with her, but she's just found out her company's relocating to a different state, and she put just a little something up on Facebook the other day saying, I don't want to move there. I'm looking for a new opportunity. And she has a big network. I responded, and the 40 people have already responded like, hey, I know this company's hiring. I know there's this opportunity. Hey, you could do this. And because she has a big network, like it's not going to take her long to find a new opportunity because she has a really strong network. And the same with like doing something like Operation Finally Home, because I have a big wide network of people. I have a lot of people locally I can rely on, but I have people throughout the country. I have relationships with a rep at a, multi-million dollar, manufacturer. So if I can reach out to him and say, hey, I'm going to do this. And they're like, hey, we can provide you all this material either free or at discounted cost. That just reduces the amount of money I have to raise for this project, right? So the more people that I have connections with and the more people that know me and know what I'm about makes it a lot easier. And so when I started Operation Flying Home, the first house I did, I remember going into meetings for months and it didn't feel like anything was happening. And I was like, gosh, what did I get myself into? I agreed to build a house for free. And I'm talking to all these people and I don't have anything to show for yet. And then all of a sudden, as I continued to talk about the project and then continued to run it through my network, I got some people to support. And as the project started, people saw the progress, started getting more excited about it. And then now when I've done 6 of these, now I say, hey, I'm going to do this. Everybody already knows what's about. They know it's going to get done. They know that we're going to help somebody. We're going to find a really great family. And now it's a very easy ask because people can see the results. And so it kind of goes to the next thing, which is like your reputation. And reputation is really important. So it takes a long time to build a reputation, but you can lose it very easily. So you have to be very careful about that. And building your reputation is one of the most important things that you can do in your life.
Well, it's really interesting what you said, like, oh my gosh, did I make a mistake starting this and running this? But now look at what happened last year. Didn't you have a senator at your
Yep. Yeah, we
and
had
then you were on Fox News, like the cable network, not just like
yeah,
the
the
local.
national,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
one of the projects when we did the groundbreaking on, it got put on Fox News National. So I was at a conference actually that you were at, and somebody texted me that evening, and people were sharing like some success stories, and I was like, oh yeah, I was just on Fox News National about 15 minutes ago, and everyone's like, what?
And
Like,
that wasn't planned, like how
no,
did that even happen?
yeah, I was just, well, when you do something newsworthy, got to talk about it, share it, right? So,
Yeah.
it was a week earlier we had surprised a family that they were getting a home. And so we'd put some media outreach, and all the local news picked up on it. And then I think it was, I don't know, it was like a Thursday night or something. And maybe the national news was a little slow, and they picked up the story and did a little thing on it. And it was incredible to see that. And that doesn't happen very often. So those are special moments. But yeah, sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's just, hard work.
I
A
think
culmination
luck
of
and
things.
opportunity meet each other though.
Absolutely.
Because it's
Yeah.
kind of like when
You
somebody
make your
says,
own luck.
"Oh, you're so lucky," but you've built something little by
Yeah.
little, and
I mean, no one's going to put me on Fox News just because I built a house, right? Like
right.
every there's hundreds of builders in every state that build a house. That's not interesting. That's not newsworthy. But when you give a home away for free, that kind of narrows the field down there. Like, that's unique. Now, we've done that before where it's not been picked up as much, because I remember one time we surprised a family. It was like the second one we did, and we thought, okay, cool, we're gonna get all this media out of it. What happened to be, there was like a shooting in Texas, and it was national news, and we kept getting preempted. We were supposed to be on the news with it, and we got preempted because there's this developing story was happening like right as we were doing this. So sometimes you can do all the right things and still not you know, get recognition for it. But we don't do this necessarily for the recognition, but the recognition is a good thing to have, because it gets more people aware of what you're doing, and hopefully gets more people to support the cause that you have. And the other thing I'll just kind of tack onto this, it's kind of, I think, ties it up nicely, is that you have to kind of think about your place in life, and part of the book that I wrote is about building your legacy. And so that's when I think a lot of things changed for me, is when I decided to create my own legacy. And so I wanted to be not only just a home builder, but I wanted to be somebody that did a lot of good in the community and helped others. And so when I started to make that part of my vision and my goals and my legacy, that's when I started to follow those opportunities. And you can do whatever you want in life, but it's up to you to kind of set your own goals and set your vision. And so don't be afraid to shoot high, aim high, and you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish over time if you do that.
100%. Yeah. I agree, because you can surprise yourself when you really put your mind to something and you're like, wow, wait, I did that?
Yeah, I mean, look at how far your organization's come and what you're doing. It's amazing, and you
Thank you.
started that up a couple of years ago,
I
and
know.
when you look back, and it's amazing, and I'm proud of what you're doing, and how you're growing, and how you're helping kids learn languages, and I mean, it's super cool.
Thank you so much.
So congrats for
And you're
everything you're
helping
doing.
me accomplish my vision, which is to teach real world skills just by, being a guest on the podcast here. So appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much, your learning is never done with school, and
No.
there's so much that they don't ever teach and cover, and podcasts are a great way to fill in some of those gaps.
Yeah, that's what I figure. So at this moment, we're starting with the podcast, but down the line, we might have live classes for these skills. So that's the goal, to
Fantastic.
keep
Love it.
growing it. Um, I do want to touch a little bit more on networking. Touching again on networking. Is there a right way and a wrong way to network?
Oh, no, that's a great question. Yeah, I think there is a right and a wrong way to network. The wrong way is making it all about you. So you have to be careful with that, because a lot of times, like, those are the people that I try and avoid at events. Like, when they walk up to you, and the first thing they do before they barely even introduce themselves is they start selling you right away. Like, don't do that. That's bad. Like, nobody wants to be hard sold. Nobody wants to be pitched within the first, 10 seconds of meeting, right? So I think the right way is to get to know the person a little bit. The right way is to understand, what's important to them, what's their business about, first of all, and then what could I do for you, or what's a need that you have. So I'm fortunate. I actually have a network group that meets once a month, and it's been going on for 10 years. We have like 25 to 30 people. Sometimes there's some new people that come in. But what we do every single time at that network group is you get like about a minute and a half to say something in front of the whole group. So usually you basically do something like this, like, hi, I'm so-and-so. and this is what I do, and this is what makes me different, and then this is something I'm looking for. Like if you can do those four things, like you can tell everybody clearly who you are, what you do, what makes you different, and what help you need. If you can do those four things when you network, you're going to be very successful with it, and people will come up to you. If you don't do that, like a bad networking, another bad networking tip is a lot of people will be like, "Hi, I'm Jim. I own Jim's Painting. I've been in business 30 years, and we paint." Like, okay, first of all, I can tell what you do from your title, right? It's Jim's Painting, right? So you don't need to really explain that. But secondly, it's like nobody cares how long you've been in business, right? But that's like the first thing people default to is like, I've been in business 27 years. It's like nobody cares. I want that guy that goes, you know what, you see that really cool building downtown Milwaukee with the mural on it. I painted that. I'll be like, I'm hiring you, right? So show something unique, stand out, be the most interesting person in the room if you can be, and you will have as many networking opportunities as you could possibly want.
Yeah. And as an example, I mean, we could look at you and I as an example. So I didn't go up to you and say, David, can I meet one-on-one with you the first time that I met you? You know,
Yep.
a relationship was built.
Yep.
And, you and I have met a couple times one-on-one, and
Mhm.
it's really been helpful just more to me than probably to you. But you were
No,
nice
you have no
enough.
idea, but yeah, but one of the things that you did that's right is like you showed up.
Okay.
And a lot of people just don't show up, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like, oh, there's a networking event. Well, I just don't. I don't know if I belong with these people. I'm afraid to meet new people. A lot of people have that. A lot of introverts out there. You've got to just go and show up and just have a conversation with one or two people and get to know somebody. And then you start to know, like when you came to Young Guns, you probably didn't know a lot of people in the room the first time. And then, one of the last events, like everybody knows you now. Like, you're walking up and you got friends, you're hugging everybody, you're talking to everybody because you showed up.
I use being different to my advantage because you're typically not going to find an educator or somebody who owns an education business in a networking group. Does that
Yep.
make me uncomfortable? Yes.
Yeah.
Does that
Well,
make me feel different? Yes, but I'm using it to my advantage. Am I nervous? 100%. I get nervous every time I walk into a room. I mean,
yep.
my stomach sometimes is in knots before I go to network, but I do it
I
anyway. I do it despite the fear.
It's
So,
kind of funny because I actually, as you were talking, I was thinking back and the first time I actually met you, and I do remember it. And I think I was on stage and I was taking questions, and you came up and asked a question, and I said, "Okay, everybody gets one question." Of course, you asked two questions, and I said, "No, I can't answer the second question, but I'll come talk to you afterwards." And I did, and then we talked and chatted and got to know each other. But I remember I'm like, oh, she's tenacious. She's trying to get more than one question asked, which was cool. But I just remember that way as you were talking about it. And sometimes you don't always remember how you meet somebody. Like they're just all of a sudden like in your life somehow. But I do remember, I do remember meeting you, and I remember that. But no, it's a good skill. Like you had something you wanted to learn, you went after it, and you stood out, and you showed up, and you were there on a mission to get something out of it, and hopefully you did, and yeah, obviously you did because you came back. But yeah, sometimes that's life too. That's like a life lesson. Like go after what you need, what you want. Don't just sit there and wait for it to come to you.
yeah, I think that is something that comes naturally to me is approaching people. Even though like I think I'm a mix of extrovert and introvert because I get really drained from being in crowds and stuff, and I like more one-on-one conversations. But I'm at the same time I'm outgoing, and I guess you could say I'm pretty fearless in terms of approaching
Yeah,
people, asking for help and things like that.
yeah.
So,
Well, you have the S personality type, which is the steady personality type, where you like people, but you don't like you know to be like the center of the attention
yeah.
necessarily, but you like to be around people. And you have a great personality for what you do because you have to be process related, and you want to help people, so you have all the skill sets that you need for what you're doing there. But it's amazing sometimes when you learn people's personality and then see how it
I
matches with
mean,
what they
I
do in their
guess
life.
so David's talking about like the DISC assessment. So
Yep.
I actually tested it as a ID. I took
Oh,
it two
okay.
times. First it was a DI and then it was an ID. Because
Okay.
I think that's where the directness, so the D is direct. The I,
Yep.
I
D
don't
is
even remember
direct. Yep.
what's the I.
I is
Oh,
influential, which
okay.
means more the people. You like people, like
Yeah.
talking with people, that kind of thing, and can communicate easily with people. So you have those as well, but
Yeah.
you also have some S in there. Whether we
You
all
have
have
all
different.
parts, right?
Yeah, most people have multiple parts
Yeah.
of personality. That means that sounds bad, like you have multiple personality disorders, but you typically have you have all the different traits, but one of them is clearly more dominant than the other ones, and then your personality will change in different environments. So like when you're stressed out, um, in a stressful situation, like when I jump on stage, I tend to get I'm kind of more, of a D and then a C personality, which is like calculating more. But when I get on stage, more of my D and more of my I come out, where I start to to be able to communicate better with people, and because I'm under a pressure situation, right? So, but my natural is more that I'm actually more kind of quiet and introverted. So, and it's interesting because I use it a lot too in sales, and I love this. This is so cool. But like I can tell, like when I'm meeting with a customer, if I see a shift in their personality, I can tell that they're getting close to buying. You know,
What's the
so you
shift
can.
look like? What kind of shift?
Well, it depends on the client, right? If
Okay.
they're normally very talkative people and all of a sudden like to get really, really quiet, they're contemplating, okay, am I going to move forward with this, or vice versa. If they're very quiet and all of a sudden they start talking really fast and getting really excited, you can tell that they're buying what you're selling, and that they're getting excited about buying it. So you can sometimes notice like when a shift in personality happens, that they're going into a different stress level, a different you know and typically in sales that means that they're thinking about making that big decision and making
Sure.
that jump.
That's really interesting. How do you approach people? So because you have done things like Operation Finally Home, you make sales on homes. I know you've done a lot of different projects throughout your career. So how do you approach people when you do need their help? Um,
Yeah,
how do
no,
you
that's a great
propose a
question.
project to them? What does that
Yeah.
look like?
The first thing that you got to learn is just not to be afraid to ask, right? You If you don't ask for anything, you won't get anything. And so, yeah, there's times. I mean, if I counted every single time I asked somebody for something, and didn't get anything, and I kept track of that versus when I got something, I'd probably be kind of depressed. Um, but you just got to not be afraid to ask, because again, if you don't ask, you don't get. So, yes, there's companies I've talked to about it where they just haven't, and that's okay, that's fine, right? But typically, when people see like how passionate I am about it, when they see what we're actually doing, and the good that it creates, it becomes usually an easy yes in some way, shape, or form. And sometimes you don't get exactly what you're asking for, and that's okay, but you might get something even better in return. Um, Sometimes I've had people that have, you know, volunteered their time. I was hoping to get, a product from them or a donation. Instead, they've given me their time for, a couple years of their life where they've come to events and given me their time. That's valuable too. So sometimes you have to go into it being flexible and know that you may not get exactly what you're going to ask for, but that if you ask for something, at least you have a chance to get something. And I think that's a big part of it. And then, I think the other big thing is just like going back to early on when we were talking about like just consistency and showing up and being there. I think that's been nice for doing a charity thing like Operation Finding Home, is to see that it's continuing on. Like we're going to have our 10th annual golf outing this year. If you'd have told me that we have a reoccurring golf outing for 10 years that I help run, from a guy that's never really golfed in his life, I've actually put on more golf outings than I've golfed in my life. And so, life is interesting, and you sometimes take different paths that you don't anticipate. But um, yeah, showing up and just being consistent, people will want to be a part of that. If I was just doing this as a one-off thing, um, yeah, I'm showing like, hey, I have a track record that I can do this, and that inspires a lot of confidence.
Yes, agreed. It's showing your dedication and commitment to something, and then that's what builds trust with people. So, Um, but when you do approach people, is it typically a phone call, an email? How does that process start, like logistically?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it depends on how I know the person. Typically when it's a newer conversation, I think that's best if you can, especially like when you go back to the networking piece, like if you can meet somebody just one on one, and especially like whether it's over a lunch or coffee or something, you do that, and you get a better connection if you can meet one on one. But obviously for a big ask, it is more helpful if you're in person. Not only can you kind of read the person a little better, but I think it's just more intimate that way. But yeah, like people that I deal with all the time, like my lumber company, I shot the guy an email. It was like a 3 sentence email, like, "Hey, we're starting another project. Can we count on you?" And he was like, "Yep." And that's all I need to do. Like, I didn't need to overcomplicate it. Like, I didn't have to go take him out to a steak dinner and do all this stuff. And then, no, it was like he already knows what it's about. They're a big part of it. I just needed to ask like that. I just needed to be very simple with that and save my time. I know that he's 90% going to support me in some way. I just got to ask. Now other people, yeah, sometimes you got to work at it a little bit or show like, hey, here's what this is, or okay, well maybe you don't want to do this, but hey, we have these sponsorships. Maybe you would want to do one of these, and okay, well you don't want to maybe jump in for an annual sponsor. How about you just come to this event? It's only $50. Come to it. It helps the cause, and then all of a sudden they go to it and they're like, wow, this is really cool, and then they're like, I want to get more involved. Well, ding, ding, ding. Then you know now we take it to the next level, right? And so everybody does things differently, but some people you got to give them little bites and start with little bites, and then you go for a bigger ask. And other people, they just like see it and they reach out to you. Like I have that too, where like sometimes I don't even reach out now. People are just like, hey, I have an electrician that called me recently, and he's like, I've seen what you're doing. I'm kind of getting close to retiring, but I have extra time. I want to wire the next house for you. I was like, I didn't even have to ask. They asked me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. People start coming to you as your business or your brand grows. So that's amazing.
Yep, that's what you want. You want to be able to build it where, yeah, people know you, and you want to be on the short list.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
that's the other thing I would say is like, I have 200 builders in my market, right? There's 200 different companies that can build a house in my area. Um,
Wow.
but I want to be on the short list because most people will only pick like 3 or 4 builders that they're willing to talk to.
Hmm.
And so if I have a really good personal brand, if I have a good business brand, people understand what I'm about.
Hmm.
I'm out there and I'm available. There's more a likelihood that they're going to come and check me out versus any of the other 200 that are out there.
Yeah, that's amazing. Are there any insider like magazines, newsletters, subscriptions that you'd recommend to people who might be interested in the type of career that you have?
Sure. I would say um, there isn't necessarily like a magazine per se, but um, I would say if you're going to get into the building industry at some point, you want to get involved with a builders association. And so, um, one of the things that was interesting to me is, for the first, 15, 20 years of my career, I wasn't really involved with our builders association. Then all of a sudden I got asked to be involved, and now I'm like heavily involved in it. And I should have did it 10 years sooner. And basically, get involved with the trade organization would be my first step, because they're going to be able to connect you with, and this is true I think with any industry. Get involved with an organization that represents that industry. You're gonna meet your competitors. That's okay. Some of my competitors are still friends. Um, you're going to meet other people involved with the industry, and then they're gonna get have a lot of that information that you're gonna need. So like I get you know weekly emails from 3 different builders organizations, and there's always valuable stuff in there. There might be economic stuff. There might be news on a law that's being passed. There might be, hey, this is a challenge that's happening in the industry, and I read that stuff. And so some of that stuff comes out in my podcast. Some of it, uh, you know, I'm just learning, and then when I'm talking with the client, now I'm informed, and I can talk to them intelligently about like what I think is going to happen with interest rates, or what's going to happen with this law, and why you might want to get your house going now versus next year because this law is coming on the books. Um, and you can get a lot of that from the trade organizations.
Okay. And what are those emails? You said you're subscribed to 3 different.
Yeah, so the builders are a little different. So
Okay.
we have it's called like a three-tier federation. So
Okay.
there's basically a local, which is, cities, and then you have the State Builders
Okay.
Association, which handles all the statewide issues, and then you have the National Builders Association, which handles like federal issues.
Got it.
And so when I joined the one, I become a member of all three. And then, there's information. So they each kind of focus on their own niche. And so there's information at all three levels. And so that's a great way. And a lot of those organizations too, they offer things like networking or events. And so get involved with something related to the business that you're in. Get involved, if it's just a local chamber. If they don't have one for your industry, you can get involved with the local chamber, or find a group. It could be a B&I group if you don't have anything else. Get involved in some groups right away. That'll help you build your network if you're just starting out and you just got your first job and you need to do some networking. And don't be afraid if you try a group and it's, go 2 or 3 times. If it doesn't feel like it's the right fit, move on to something else. It's okay.
Yeah, totally. Um, to end our episode here, is there any advice you'd give to your younger self?
Yeah. I would say 2 things. Have a big vision for yourself and always commit to learning and growing. And if you do that, you're going to be successful.
Great. And then where can people find you? We'll put it in the show notes too.
Sure. I post a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. So just look up David Belman on LinkedIn. Follow me. You're going to see a lot of interesting stuff there. Otherwise, you can find me on my podcast, Home Building Hero. And you can check out all sorts of different episodes if you want to learn anything about the building industry. Or, if you want to reach out, you can email me. So just david@belmanhomes.com. Just one L in Belman. So
Yeah, I learned that because sometimes when I go to find you, I'm like, oh wait, it's one L.
Yep. Just one L in Belman, you'll find me.
Okay. Thanks so much, David.
Thanks, Nikki. Great to talk to you.
You too.